So I didn't know, like, the South Pole, I think it is melting to an extreme level. It's probably, I mean, it's not news to me that that the sheets are melting, like the ice is melting. But it's depleted, apparently more than half. So the North and South poles are depleting, and causing the sea levels to rise. So no one really knows the reason for the melting. It seems to be a natural cycle. So far, no one's discovered any interference by humans that has been causing the ice sheets to melt at a faster rate. Some people joke that they visit Antarctica and they urinated on the ice, and the urine had salt in it, and as a result, the salt deteriorated the ice, and it began to fall apart from there. That's kind of an Australian joke, but apparently to some people, that's what happened. That's why Antarctica, or the Antarctica, started to melt. But apparently, it's been melting at a faster rate, particularly even in the 2000 era. Everyone's concerned about it depleting so much. Where it was once large, it is now small. And no one's been monitoring what's been happening to the wildlife in Antarctica, whether they've just been moving to other parts of the world, or what. I mean, you've got polar bears, you've got birds, you've got penguins, all of which rely on the ice in order to live. It's assumed that the wildlife probably drowns, if not eaten by the whales in the ocean. But some might have been able to find other places to live. I mean, I guess the whole of Antarctica hasn't melted, so they might be sort of occupying different spheres of the ice. So that's no one really has written a report on that, which would be an interesting thing. But they have been, stating that wildlife has been trying to relocate from the ice region to other parts of the world. When a penguin relocated itself, an emperor penguin relocated itself to New Zealand, what New Zealand did is they fed the penguin and put it back in the water to allow it to swim back to Antarctica. But they didn't really think about what they were doing, or whether there was a reason why a penguin would go on a large adventure to get away from the ice. They didn't really think about, what the movement actually meant. They just said that the penguin got lost. But it might be that the penguin was just trying to get away and relocate, which it would find hard if it didn't relocate, say, on an island or something. Usually, countries would probably try to give the marine life back to its natural habitat, what's called its natural habitat, but they're not really thinking, maybe this little bird has been trying to be smart and relocate for a reason. So that was a little bit of a I really think it was a letdown from a large perspective, and it is a bit of a letdown that like animals can't relocate to any part of the world because humans habitate the world, and they have been doing their research and they recognize that, you know, certain animals belong in certain countries and living in certain ways, and they've sort of categorized its species as being good for only that area. They haven't really given much thought to a species wanting to move to relocate itself in order to live in a different area. So there's no such thing as select migration anymore, which is why some species might be found on more than one location in the world. They just they're expected to stay where they are, and you know, if they're from Antarctica, they're expected to stay around Antarctica until all those ice sheets are non-existent. So that's a little bit of something that hasn't really been researched or considered when it comes to migration. So apart from the fact that the ice has been melting, it might be that the sea is growing warmer, or maybe it has more sulfur or some sort of particle which causes the ice to melt from underneath, and that would probably be presumed that the reason for that would be that there might be underwater volcanoes that are just waiting to blow or rise up from the ocean. I don't think anyone's seen a volcano rise up from, like a new volcano rise up from the ocean in a long time, but you know, apparently, you know, some have just been able to appear out of nowhere in the past. You know, they start blazing underneath the ocean, I suppose, until they explode and send all this rock mass and stuff. You know, I can't really say exactly how it would happen, but that's something I think around the lines of what would happen. But that's one theory. And how this has been affecting the world is that with the melting of the ice, there is going to be a rise in sea levels. So apparently coastlines are going to be covered. So on America, for instance, the sea levels are going to rise up to the doorstep of residential homes. So the homes will probably have to be relocated in order to be a little further away from the edge from the sea water. So that would probably cost countries like the United States millions of dollars. And it might be that maybe the whales and creatures under the ice, you know, without the ice there, they might lose their homes. And perhaps because they're not around the cool temperatures, they might be found beached on countries simply because they're not used to living in warmer conditions. So with the melting of the ice might mean that the water isn't as cold. And so, if they brave to try and relocate themselves, they might find themselves in water too warm and sort of die as a result, because they're used to the colder environment. So that might be one possibility. It has been said that Arctic seabirds have been found in the United States, around a small cluster of 9 or 19, and they were found trying to migrate away from the ice zone, and apparently only around 2 or 3 survived. So that's another sort of migration issue. The birds are being looked after, but the caretakers are wondering if, or they should be wondering if they might be better off in a zoo rather than be released in order to try and be urged to head back to the ice zones where they sort of usually live and nest and feed on the water fish there. So obviously, if those birds are released, they might die anyway. Might be like the emperor penguin, where they've sort of braved to try and migrate and sort of trying, and when they're trying to be forced to go home, that they might actually die anyway. So it's presumed, that the emperor penguin died. No one knows exactly what happened, but apparently the tracker stopped in a certain location, and the penguin actually, they said it fell off. No one's actually bothered to see if it's attached to the penguin or not, but because it's sort of so still, it's presumed that the penguin probably didn't make it. But if it hadn't, most people probably wanted it to have found sort of an underground cave or something that sort of humans don't know about, and sort of started to just lay there. But it's presumed that either the tracker fell off or it's actually dead. So yeah, no one really knows what happened with that penguin. But it wasn't a successful relocation, and it's presumed that other similar creatures, if they bother to try and migrate, and try to be forced to go back to the place where they used to live, they might end up sort of being unsuccessful at trying to move back. So with the world so closed to migration, you've really got to just you really see that there's a bit of a struggle with the natural cycle of things, of life. There's no such thing as what do you call it? Darwin brought it up. There's no such thing as the natural development of the world, where things move they fight for each other in the world and species live. There's no such thing as that kind of choice anymore. The world is a lot more closed with the human habitation. So the species will find that they can't just move and start living somewhere else. If they're caught, when they're caught, and if they're caught, they'll be made a spectacle of by humans who just haven't, begun to think what is really happening, where some species have been trying to possibly break away from their homes in order to relocate themselves into a new environment, because an instinct inside of them has been telling them to move, whether it's because they've been losing food, or whether there's low food choices. Maybe the food is bad, non-nutritious because of contaminated water species, or maybe they have been, been noticing that the ice world is getting smaller, and so they want to relocate before their homes become extinct. Or maybe maybe the temperatures aren't suiting them anymore, or maybe they have a sixth sense that something is going to happen. Like maybe a volcano is going to explode and break the ice apart or something, all of a sudden, like a Big Bang Theory. So, you never know what an animal species is saying. But, if you find, like, quirky animal species moving around the world at a larger number, it might be, really stating a concern of their environment. I mean, you never know, humans might want to be catching these species and try to relocate them back to their home, which is slowly deteriorating, but or they might sort of kill the species because they're not apparently a part of the natural environment or the native environment. You don't know what's going to happen, but obviously, if the species continue to want to move, and if they move in large clusters, it's pretty fair to suggest that there is definitely something wrong with their environment, and that they're trying to migrate to other parts of the world. So far, there's no such thing as an illegal alien when it comes to nature, but obviously, scientists think that they will never be able to survive unless they're put in their select environment, which has been the environment they've been studied in living and breeding in successfully ever since study books have been created. So man might just destroy these creatures who might actually be trying to move for a reason and move for a new life in a new environment. But you never know. I mean, what the creatures are really thinking. But it would be a shame if man just interfered and tried to destroy them if they found enough of them had migrated to the wrong zone, or had destroyed them because they've caught them and taken them in and distressed them until they've suffered a stroke or something. There might be this interference that might actually sort of add to the destruction of these species. They definitely won't be able to just land anywhere and start pecking around. they'll probably be made made into a spectacle, and it would be a shame if the reasons for their migration is overlooked. If they will continue to just be seen as being lost or misguided rather than choosing to try and move around the world as a result of some sort of disgruntled with their home habitat. So, it'd be a shame if, that is completely overlooked. And it would be another shame if the species aren't actually free to be able to live however they like and when they try to move. So, so that's sort of an environmental concern when it comes to the melting of the ice. But obviously it's going to be a big thing if all of North Pole and South Pole or Antarctica or whatever you call it melts. Obviously, we'll have more water, less land. No one knows if, species like the polar bear will be found swimming in the ocean and settling in Russia or Greenland or something. You don't know how strong an animal is until they're sort of forced to fight nature, and then, it would be a new thing to people if they found polar bears or penguins massing on other parts of the world after the ices run out. It's really up to speculation what will happen. Whether the countries of the world will just kill them, or for being, particularly in the case of the polar bear, for being a large and dangerous wild animal. Humans can't put up with polar bears unless they're in a zoo. So, it's up to speculation what will happen to these creatures, whether they'll get to actually live in other countries, or whether they'll be put in some sort of sanctuary for endangered species, or whether they'll be killed for being too dangerous for any world that isn't Antarctica or the North or South Pole or whatever. So, you can guess, like, if they landed on an island or something, the polar bears might be shot and everything. Not given really a chance to live. They might be like suddenly an extinct species. But you don't know what will happen. The penguins might be able to survive. But it might be an idea to try and put a man-made floating island in the ocean and try to have those wild creatures sort of live. Because you'll have a very large expanse of ocean. So, I don't know if it's possible for humans to make a really big land in the North or South Pole, but that might be an idea for these really wild creatures who would find it hard to live anywhere else in the world to construct. But, but I guess, we're nowhere near the end of the ice yet. But, it's something to think about while everything's deteriorating.